Hiya. Okay, so in this video we're going to look at how you create blocks like these, which are what I like to call obscure sections. And it's a really fun way of kind of using up your fabric. So we looked in the previous video at how to focus cut an identifiable motif so that it's in your block, and you could do that either centrally or you could push it into the corner. So for this prompt, you choose a section of the motif which makes it difficult to identify what the original motif was. So it's probably better if I show it to you in action. So for these ones, what I've done is taken a section of a swimming costume. And there's several different ways you can do this. I'm probably going to show you the easiest way first. And typically when you look at a motif like this, it's really hard to kind of see new designs sometimes. So what I quite like to do is turn it upside down when you're looking at the motif, and then you start to see different patterns that could potentially come through. So that's my first really top tip, is turn your fabric upside down and have a look. And the one I want to show you is if we take the bottom section of the swimming costume, because obviously once you've turned it upside down, the bit that's obvious to me is this triangle shape. Bear with me on this, I know it sounds really odd, and I am cutting the crotch of the swimming costume off for a block, but it'll be worth it. So you put your template on and you can see that I'm lining up kind of the section of the motif here that I want at the shortest part of the hexagon, and then I'm just going to cut into the fabric, and again, because it was in the middle of the fabric, I cut into the fold, and that way I'm not wasting anything. And this is really good, especially if your fabric starts to look like Swiss cheese from doing the identifiable motifs. You can then really start to look at what possible sections you can have that would give you new designs and make the original motif slightly more obscure. So let me move these out of the way. So we've just cut the crotch of the swimming costume off. I'm hearing myself as I say it, and I know how ridiculous it sounds, but it will be worth it. And then what you'll do, as before, and I'm not being too precise, I'm actually not putting the template back on here. So I know from looking at it, I know that I kind of wanted that triangle shape here. So I know roughly where to put the templates. I'm just going to, from the wrong side, you can see the pattern. I'm then just going to push it up slightly. And then as we did before, use the clips, and then you're just going to go ahead and baste it. And it'll look like that. So once you've basted all the way around, I'll move that out the way, you'll then get a template that looks like that, which would be identifiable if it were part of the whole motif, or if we were doing pattern matching, and we'll come on to that on another week on the sew along as well, or in another video if you're just watching the YouTube ones. So if you go ahead and repeat this 6 times for your 6 half hexagons, and then you start to create this really interesting new kind of star shape. And when you look at this, I'll move these up there so you can kind of see it here. So when you look at this, you wouldn't immediately think, oh, I know what that looks like. That looks like the crotch of a swimming costume. You'd think, oh, that's a really interesting new design that's coming through. And then you can just choose anything you want for kind of the centre like this. And it's almost created like, I'll probably turn it on the edge, and it's created like a frame effect for your centre hexagon. The other option you could do, so this one we took sections and we looked at it on the smallest part, I put it on there, so the smallest part of the hexagon template. The other option is, let me find, so I've got it in a different colourway, so I'll show you it on here. You could do it along the longest part of the half hexagon, and again turn the fabric different ways. You can kind of get a look at different, so you could get a really fun effect if you just took the strings of the bikini and did it at the top, and then once you've got them all the way around, it'd look like lines pointing into the centre of your block. Now the one that I tried doing was here, so it went across the entire length of the top of the template, and that would give you an in the round sections effect. And again, if you look at this, your original idea wouldn't be, oh, that looks like half a swimming costume. Your eyes are kind of drawn to the repetition and drawn to the circular effect that it's doing. The other option you could do is exactly the same section here, but let me find it here. So whereas before we took it this way, on the next one you would then alternate it. So in the same way, do you remember when we did the identifiable motifs and we got them radiating out from alternating points up there? So if you do that with your sections, you can kind of create new designs like this. So you see they're both radiating out from one point. So they've both got exactly the same section, but they've created slightly different looks, and kind of movement around the block is really different. And of course, whilst that went across the entire of the longer side, you could do just, again, if you notice, I'm looking at this fabric upside down because I find that really, really helps when I'm trying to look for obscure designs. You could also just take, see the top section there of the motif like that, which would give you something like this. The other top tip I would give you is, so say you were taking it, and you could do it at any of these points, if you want to create kind of like a mirrored image like this, then I would recommend putting the template on. Let me see if I can, yes, so say I wanted to do there, I'm taking just like a triangle section here of the swimming costume, and then what you can do is you can get a mirror, put the mirror on and line it up on the edge, and you can kind of start to get a rough idea for what a mirrored image would look like. And it does take some getting used to, and it's like you're training your brain to look at fabric in a new way. So again, you're looking at the moon, and even if you turn it upside down, it still looks like a moon. So I would kind of, you know, maybe turn it on its side, and you could take it here at the shortest section, and then can you imagine that all the way around? It would look amazing. Or again, you could do it at the top of your half hexagon. They'd all be kind of drawing the eye in towards the centre. It's slightly harder to do if you've got a small motif like this, but it's not impossible. So again, I would just take, they tend to be the bits that you wouldn't necessarily think of taking, but if you just took the bottom of the turtle, again, bear with me on this, but if you then mirrored that image, you'd get a really interesting, like, can you see there? Like a really interesting, subtle kind of mirrored image there, which would almost look like a flower out of the turtle's bottom. It wouldn't necessarily be as obscure if you took the head. So I think that's the thing to try when you're doing the obscure sections. You want to try and really take the bit that's less obvious of the original motif. Trying to think what other examples, and again, it works really, really nicely kind of on any sort of animals or bugs or different parts. You can just take the bottom section of it, or you can take the entire kind of wing like that, and that would create a really nice effect. And it's a bit like, do you remember that optical illusion that you see when you're asked, do you see the older lady's face profile, or do you see the younger lady's profile? Your brain is kind of, this will be a really, really new technique to lots of people, and it's about training your brain to look at fabric in a new way. All patchwork is cutting fabric into sections. The difference with this is that we're cutting it into obscure sections so that we can create a new design, and this is where your creativity can really go wild. And the other thing I would say is, if you're taking a section of a motif, sorry, I'm just trying to find the right fabric to do it. So say you were taking a section of the strawberry here, and trying to find one that's close together. So say you were taking a section of this bottom strawberry right here, but in doing so, you've got a whole strawberry over here. That's absolutely fine, because this is the bit here that we're focusing the obscure section on. This is kind of like an added bonus focus cutting to the rest of your half hexagon. So it doesn't necessarily mean the rest of your hexagon has to be blank. I mean, sometimes it makes the pattern stand out more, but it doesn't have to be blank. The fabric I'd say is quite difficult to do is with flowers. When you take sections of flowers, they typically do look like sections of flowers, especially when you start to do the mirror image. So it's not impossible with flowers, but it is much harder. The thing I would say is have a go with this centre hexagon too, because it can really, really change. I'm doing this one, it can really change the overall effect of the block. So here I just went for one of the floral elements kind of blend in and to make these sections pop, but you could do your focus cutting in the middle, and this works really nicely as well, especially if you've done it in the round sections, and you can kind of put an identifiable motif in there and you've created a completely new design to act as a frame, and you've got your identifiable motif there, and it can really change the whole look of the block depending on what colour you put in. So see how different that can look. So definitely have a play with the centre of your block as well as having a play with these, and that's kind of the key message really, is just have a play. And it has taken me a while to get used to doing it, so you know, be kind to yourself, have a go at playing with it, with the different designs, with your fabrics. Some fabrics might work, some might not. So you could do your sections here at the narrowest part of your block, and they kind of create a star effect radiating out. You could do them along the longest edge of your block, and if they're all identical then they create an in the round effect. You can do mirrored ones along the longest edge, which create a really interesting, almost kaleidoscope effect. Or you could just do it in one corner of each of the half hexagons in a mirrored effect, or you could do it identical. So there really is no specific way to do this. It really is having a play, turning your fabric round, using a mirror, start cutting, start playing with different options. Look for the bits that you wouldn't necessarily go for, so like we looked at the crotch of the swimming costume, or you looked at kind of using the bottom of the bug, or at the turtle you could do it of the bottom half of the owl. That kind of tends to be my go-to because I know it can create new kaleidoscope designs. So they're my top tips. Have a go, be kind to yourself, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.